Right. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We'll now begin with our first technical session. In this session, we will discuss the decoding trajectory of the Indian startup ecosystem. The panel for the session will be moderated by Mr. Tushar Kansal, who is the founder/CEO of Kansaltancy Ventures. Mr. Tushar is an accomplished professional with experience spanning multiple sectors from venture capital, Big Four Consulting, Deloitte and Touche, LSE listed Systemas India Unit, MTS India, to CFO of Guggenheim Partners owned company, DLI.
Mr. Tushar has expertise in financial and business advisory, fundraising and creation of docs or collaterals for VC funding. Mr. Tushar is a venture advisor with Loyal VC, the institute-led Canadian VC fund, having a core portfolio of over 160 investments in more than 35 countries. He is also partner with GSD Venture Studios, a Silicon Valley-based venture builder.
He received executive education in leadership from Harvard Business School, MBA in finance from University of Delhi, and BTech from the Technological Institute of Textile and Sciences, affiliated to the Textile Institute Manchester, United Kingdom, and is part of the leading industrial and education house in India, the Birla Group.
Our panel consists of Mr. Ankur Pandey, CTO and co-founder of Signzy. He has done his Master of Technology from IIT Kharagpur. Mr. Ankur has over 8+ years of experience in cognitive systems, AI, blockchain, and machine learning, with a keen interest in creating solutions and intending to create a trust mechanism in the digital economy. He co-founded Signzy in 2015. He is leading Signzy to achieve differentiation by leveraging the latest technology and innovation.
We also have with us Mr. Sumit Goswami. He is the Managing Director, India with Global Growth Holdings, a US-based private equity firm with interests in emerging technologies. In his current role as India Region Head and Head of Global Reporting and Research, he is responsible for connecting the dots and going beyond data to generate meaningful insight. He recently led and executed successful digital transformation, process excellence, and innovation management projects across market research businesses in the PE portfolio.
Mr. Sumit's core expertise lies in leading cross-functional global teams, designing and implementing new strategies and systems and processes to improve organizational competitiveness for the future. Having been a successful startup co-founder and an angel investor, Mr. Sumit is also an active member of the startup ecosystem in India. We also have with us Mr. Shashank Randev, who is the founder VC at 100X VC, India's first venture fund to invest in early stage startups using iSafe notes. He is also an angel investor and advisor with a keen interest in B2B emerging technology startups.
Previously, he was the founding member and vice president of VCC Edge, the SaaS data platform by VCC Circle. He launched the SaaS platform, led revenue, product development, and growth initiatives for close to 7 years at VCC Edge. He has also worked with NIIT Limited and Zensor Technologies Limited.
Mr. Shashank holds an undergraduate degree in Bachelor of Engineering from Nagpur University and an MBA from IMI in New Delhi. His specialties include scaling up startups, accelerators, angel and seed investment, venture capital, global open innovation, M&A, cross-border transactions, and entrepreneurship.
We also have with us Mr. Kumar Prashank Chaudhary. Mr. Prashank is currently a senior vice president at Gemini Solutions Private Limited. Mr. Prashank has an overall experience of 12+ years. He started his career with BAIL, Bharat Heavy Electricals Limited, and went on to become a senior associate analyst with ICRA before joining Gemini Solutions as the business head. He's an alumnus of the DCE and has also done his master's in finance from Department of Financial Studies, Delhi University. He is skilled at financial modeling, business strategy, and valuation.
Thank you all for taking the time out of your busy schedule to join us. Please accept a tree that has been planted on behalf of each of you as a token of gratitude. All the trees are planted at different places throughout India. The progress of the trees can be tracked by the certificates as they grow to be bountiful, which will be shared with you all. Now, I would request Mr. Tushar Kansal, our moderator, to start with the panel discussion.
Thank you, Shantanu. Thank you, JH. It was It is really my pleasure to be moderating this session today with the esteemed panelists Ankur, Sumit, Shashank, and Prashank. So, just to give you a background, a lot of things happened during COVID. Businesses were shut down, and a lot of startups they went into a huddle as to changing and pivoting their business plans. So, the first thing I would like to ask my esteemed panelists is that now that vaccinations are progressing nicely, and we are seeing almost 100 crore people vaccinated in India, and globally a lot of people getting vaccinated. How's the situation currently with the startup ecosystem, and how is the startups ecosystem panning out globally? So starting with Shashank. Shashank, could we have your views, please?
Hi Tushar, good to get connected. Thank you, the organizing committee for inviting. So Tushar, my opinion is that, while COVID was one event which was catastrophic in many ways, somehow it has not, and some startups in certain sectors did get affected, but the overall startup ecosystem somehow got accelerated. And with a lull of the first 3 months, when everything came into existence from a COVID standpoint in March 2020, I think post August of 2020, funds across the globe, particularly in India, they started doubling down into early stage investments. Tech enabled companies saw a lot of interest. We ourselves ended up, accelerating our process of investments. And today we stand. I mean, I think we've done 35 investments over the last 1 year, and I think globally we are moving into a next phase. And these kind of startups and the kind of business models, whether it's around social commerce, whether it's around communities, is emerging along with deep tech companies. So I think this is a very, very interesting and very good time to start a company. There's ample amount of capital. There are investors who are wanting to identify newer opportunities, and the sentiment per se has never been so high and so optimistic when it comes to identifying great unicornish kind of companies.
Great. Thank you so much, Shashank, for your views. So basically, we have also witnessed that, as you rightly said, technology has marched. It's going forward. It's entering our homes in many ways, and startups are at the forefront of this renaissance. So coming to Ankur, what are your views about the startup ecosystem panning out globally?
Sure, Tushar. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to be the part of this panel. Really appreciate it. So I totally reverberate with what Shashank pointed out. Overall, we have seen the startup ecosystem accelerate only in the last 18 months, right? So at the verge of the COVID, when we were starting to experience lockdowns, there have been a few down quarters, and in fact, even in the second wave, there's been a downturn in the startup ecosystem business outputs, but still the investments, like Shashank was mentioning, have continued to flow. It is growing, and there are certain sectors like financial technology, which we are part of, right? So fintech has seen an extremely accelerated growth. So currently there are a lot of unprecedented things happening.
Okay, understood. So that's very, very well said. So you are also experiencing the impact of technology. So that is, that's something which looks like a phenomena more than a short-term thing. So coming to Sumit, Sumit, what are your views on the startup ecosystem, especially in light of the vaccinations getting played out?
Great. Thanks, Tushar, and thanks for having me on board. Very interesting topic to discuss about. While we have seen the impact of COVID, different phases of COVID, the phase 1 and the phase 2, each one had its own story to tell, and it prepared the ecosystem in a very, very different way. So each one came with its own challenges. I guess what has happened is with this COVID coming up, and with the pandemic, there has been a democratization of entire ecosystem. that has taken place. So what has happened now with the ecosystem is that the ecosystem has now become very responsible for actually taking the mantle of managing the economy to a large extent. Entrepreneurs have become actually economic drivers, and they've started becoming very comfortable with uncertainty. So that's something which we have started seeing. There are a lot of startup entrepreneurs. They pivoted the business. They were doing something. The business model was something, but then when they saw the COVID coming up, obviously they had to change the business model. Things were not working the way it was working earlier, and they pivoted, and they pivoted very successfully. So people say, right, necessity is the mother of invention. I think that is exactly what happened. People were forced to look at other avenues of business. They were forced to digitize. A lot of business actually got very heavily focused on digitization. That gave a completely new opportunity to lots and lots of startups. Hiring became very easy. Earlier, if, my startup is located in Bangalore or my startup is located in Pune, I had the restriction of hiring people only from those locations or somewhere close by. But today, that's not the case. If you get a good machine learning developer, sitting in South Africa, just go ahead and hire him, because he's ultimately going to work, remotely from there and contribute to your growth story. So a lot of these changes have happened, and they've actually matured the ecosystem a lot more. I guess I would say this entire COVID, the pandemic was actually a very good learning exercise, or I would say a renaissance for the entire startup ecosystem. And there's no looking back, I guess.
Thank you, Sumit. Well said. So, the impact of technology and entrepreneurs becoming economic drivers, in a sense, taking the mantle towards greater adoption of technology and disruption in the market, and also the hiring trends, which because of work from home, there are more options available for companies to hire. In fact, one of my technology friends who has a startup in the US was telling that the salaries for technologists have increased so much that one is almost paying the same salary in India as one is paying in dollar terms in the US, and that is one impact of the uh, insertion of technology in practically all business models. So lastly, coming to Kumar, Prashank, Kumar, thank you so much for joining in today. So what are your views on the startup ecosystem panning out globally in light of the vaccinations getting played out?
Good morning, everyone, and thanks for having me here. I think, Tushar, I completely resonate with what Shashank and Ankur put forward, but I would say the more resonance that I have is with what Sumit had to say, because essentially we'll have to actually see that there are two kinds of startups. There are the tech startups, and then there are the non-tech startups. And of course, COVID has really given a push to the tech startups for sure, because they are thinking aggressively on how to solve those generic problems, which always have been there. Like if we talk about Uber, like we already always had those taxi stands in India where you had to go and get a taxi, and it immediately came onto a tech platform. And similar things have been happening. And the last 18 months have really opened up people's minds, especially in the tech industry, how they can go ahead and solve these smaller problems. And that definitely has really snowballed into a kind of directionality where tech startups have really a lot of funding, as well as a lot of interest coming behind them, and people are standing behind them. But we have to also see that the rest of the stuff, like I'll share a name, Euler Motors. That's one of my colleagues, a junior of mine. He's launching it on 27th October. Even these startups, things in warehousing, sharing, logistics industries, all of these have also had this renewed interest which has showed up. And that's primarily because people are looking at, as Sumit and Ankur put it, people are repivoting, and they're really looking at solving problems with ingenuine solutions. So yes, just to summarily put it, there is definitely a onus and specific focus on how to build and go ahead with those startups. And I'm pretty sure this is only going to increase going forward.
Great. Well said. So, this adoption is across the board. It is not only, apart from startups and, non-tech companies are also seeing changes in their business model. Well said, Prashant. So, my next question is starting with Shashank, that, we are seeing 2 to 3 or even 4 startups becoming unicorns every week. This kind of a phenomena which used to happen in China, where 4 IPOs used to happen on the Chinese stock markets and used to create billionaires. So, in a sense, a similar kind of phenomena is happening in India, and everyone is, tuning into the happenings. So, are you seeing students from campuses, in your view, the entrepreneurs which are coming to you, the founders who are coming to you, have they chosen entrepreneurship as a career rather than joining a multinational, for example, as a job? So are you seeing that kind of a trend as well?
No, I think this trend has been making for the last 10 to 12 years. I remember I did my MBA from IMI New Delhi, and we were a batch of what, 65, 70. And obviously this was 2008 crash. So I didn't get placed despite the fact I was part of the placement committee. So, but I remember that, out of the entire batch, I mean, I ended up becoming the founding member of VC Circle right after my MBA. And those days, I think the focus was MBA. If you're getting in, you need to get placed. And during my journey from 2009 till the time VC Circle got acquired in 2015 by News Corporation, um, you know, I learned a lot during that process, but also I started seeing a lot of startups. And now, as it stands, I think when I passed out of my MBA to what I'm seeing now is completely different. Now, I don't think so. Kids want to wait for a placement, right? They have this mindset, at least they're trying to develop that. And I think the whole ecosystem is also trying to work with them with the incubation centers and e-cells. That ecosystem has picked up. We ourselves, we've invested in companies where they've just passed out of the 4th year. They had a great idea, we invested, and they also got funded with follow-on funding. So clearly, I'm seeing, again, students are best placed to answer that question. But what we are seeing is that we are seeing an increase in the number of students attempting to do businesses, more so from right after they've completed their graduation as opposed to MBA. But definitely, at least on the engineering graduation side, whether it's BITS, whether it's IITs, even the regional colleges, they suddenly have this courage. There is this, it's a wonderful time. I mean, I wish during our colleges we had this sentiment, but that has really changed. Sometimes, to be very candid and honest, it's difficult to keep up with this generation. They're learning quicker than what we guys can anticipate, right? So it is definitely, we're seeing a lot of students, and we're going to see a lot of mature students building up. And I think over the last 10 years, what has also happened is it's a function of a lot of things, right? A lot of VCs came in, a lot of startups came in, second generation entrepreneurs came in. Freshworks did a IPO. First time you had Kunal Shah, who started their second company. So there are role models, there are examples, there are case studies for these students to look at, and they're getting inspired by that. And the second is the advent of cheap data. I mean, I was paying, I couldn't stream content in 2012, right? I used to play Kaun Dekhega phone play, and I was one of those people. Like, I used to look at people looking at phone. I was like, madness. I will never spend. Today, I spend 90% of my time viewing content on phone, right? And that, just imagine, I'm 40, so these students they're beginning their journey with that. So there's a lot of change happening. It's difficult. I'm saying that a lot of time investors ask you, what do you predict? We are not the predictors, right? We see students and we see young startups kind of do things, and then we realize. So we are seeing students, and it's a very interesting time.
Great. That's amazing view, Shashank. I saw a 19-year-old who's into second year of college, and he had 20 employees. And I was like, how do you manage? And some of these employees are 35-year-old and 25-year-old. And anyway, so it's a great trend. Thank you so much, Shashank, for your views. And I also feel that, direct to consumer as a sector has taken taken off on the back of easy internet and logistics companies and so on. So coming to Ankur, what are your views on entrepreneurship as a career versus a standard, say, a high profile investment banking job? Do you see a trend there?
Sure. So I am comparatively young from, if you compare from the panel. So I have been in college in 2015. So it has been a trend since 2011 and 12 is what I have seen. So in our colleges, for instance, people were already starting up. The e-cell was very good. There was a support in the community, and open source was taking off. First thing. So with open source, advent of open source, you had access to cheap data, data processing technologies. You had access to understanding how technology works, and you can get easier access to different people as well, right? So the ecosystem has been shaping up since then. What we are seeing is not kind of a trigger to bring in more people into entrepreneurship. It's more like the people who have started taking entrepreneurship 5 to 10 years back. We are seeing the results now. So the IPOs that we are seeing, the number of startups that are picking up, and the interest that we are seeing in the current thing is kind of the outcome of what people have done for 5 to 10 years back. We'll definitely see a lot of more entrepreneurships as well coming in. Earlier, it was more kind of a tier one college thing, but now we also have seen a lot of people go out of the company and start their own stuff, and then also people from tier two colleges as well are taking a lot of courage. And this family has been driven through technology and the open source rise is what we have seen. Definitely, we are going to have a very interesting future ahead.
Right. Very, very exciting times, and it's really all of you seem to have been observing that and experiencing that. So coming to Sumit, what are your views? Are you seeing the students increasingly opt for entrepreneurship?
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. And as Ankur said, he's quite fresh right from college, so his experience matters a lot. So I passed out from NIT Trichy in 1996, and we had a e-cell in our college. It was not that active. There were just about 5% of us who opted for it. They joined, and there were some programs running, but people were more interested in the Tatas and the telcos and the Citibank kind of a job. And that is where the hurdle is to go towards. But now, if you look at, I've been fortunate to be part of a few of the e-cells in IITs, IIT Kanpur and IIT Bombay, and I'm amazed to see the kind of interest that I see in the students from those colleges. There are hordes and hordes of students in the final year, in the third year. They're part of the ecosystem. They're actually talking about ideas. Many of them are running startups which are in a bootstrapping phase. The e-cells there are helping them get across to investors, VCs, and so even when they're studying it, when they're in third and the fourth year of the college, they are actually looking at an alternate career option. In our case, it was very different, right? We were more focused on what projects we do. Should we prepare for GRE, or do we look at GMAT and those kind of stuff? But here the situation is very, very different. People have entrepreneurship now built up in their DNA. And that is also because of the successes that we have seen in the market today. 2021, 26 unicorns from India till now. 6 unicorns in the month of April alone, right? So that's the kind of activity that we see. And these are all success stories, right? People read about those successes. There are icons created. And you all want to follow that, right? You see them successful, you see them doing something, solving some real core issues, and you want to be part of those, those stories. So of course, the students have a lot of options. Any institute which feels entrepreneurship is important, they should set up an e-cell and provide complete support to that e-cell. The tech institutes are doing extremely good. The management institutes may need to pick up. There are few who are actually doing some work, but there are a lot which needs to really, buck up and give students an opportunity to take part in entrepreneurship.
Right. That's you are very rightly said, Sumit. E-cells. The government came up with Startup India, DPIT, Invest India, and a lot of the government institutions now have entrepreneurship cells, and there are so many incubators as well. And I am actually a mentor and judge at entrepreneurship cells of 5 IITs. And in one of the events which was happening in IIT Mumbai, the guy there said, "Sir, we have 2,000 startups coming in for the event." And I was like, 2,000? I mean, it means something. And then, there was a guy whose startup was selected. So I was talking to him after the event. He was in seventh class. I was like, "You are in seventh class and your startup has been selected." And it was an eye-opening experience. And and apart from funded startups, we are seeing Freshworks and Zoho turning unicorns. So that is also kind of I feel so coming to Kumar, Prashank, what are your views on uh, this whole it is like a festival, the startup festival. So what do you feel about this entrepreneurship aspect?
I think, Tushar, this is something which has really started to gain, like it has become heartfelt. We already always had ideas. Like I am pretty sure Shashank, his dad, my dad, they always had ideas. But frankly, the ecosystem never existed in India. If we talk about the last 25, 30 odd years, like starting from when I started actually realizing what things are happening. So right from 91, when economy opened, we got these incubation centers, we got these e-cells in IITs, then they moved on to NITs, RECs, and that has percolated down. What trend I see actually, every other guy that I hire for the firm, or even if I interview in a college or anywhere else, they have their entrepreneurial instinct, they have certain idea, and they have also reached a stage where parents, so we have seen the middle class grow basically in the last 35 odd years. And they are at a stage where they can actually think about leaving their job, not even starting a job, and really jumping into and trying doing something in their initial years where they have the zeal. So that's why we are seeing people in the 20s really going out and experimenting, at least trying out. They might fail, they might succeed, and I really don't hold any of that against anyone. But the whole idea is being comfortable about it. And so are the parents. They're allowing people, they're allowing kids to really go ahead and experiment. That is the change in ecosystem that has really happened, and we have to acknowledge that. And I have always been supportive of people who wish to do something. I have had multiple ex-employees of mine who have gone out and started something up. I have extended them help, not just financially, but in any other sense that we could help them tech-wise or otherwise. So this is something that we have to appreciate, that the ecosystem overall has changed and people have really become comfortable about taking those risks, which earlier, frankly, me as a child, me as a part of a family, they never had that kind of freedom or independence to explore. So that's my 2 cents on this whole thing.
Right, Prashank. You are very rightly, nailed it when you said that actually our whole academic system is not gearing us for risk taking. And when entrepreneurship cells and incubators open up, they allow you to do so. So it's a revolutionary change. Coming to little more micro, within the startup ecosystem, which are the sectors which, post COVID, post vaccination, what are the sectors which will come out in the front and be more appealing for the whole market, both in terms of businesses as well as investments? So to Shashank first. Shashank, your views on the same, please.
So, we are a sector agnostic fund, and bulk of our investments have been in, our objective is to invest in high growth companies. And what we've been seeing is technology enabled businesses, obviously, as you mentioned earlier, and the co-panelists mentioned, have seen a surge in terms of investments, in terms of growth. Some of the sectors which are emerging, and it's a good play. Firstly, every company is going fintech. So, right, fintech used to be a vertical play. Now it has become more of a horizontal play, with the government regulations around, let's say account aggregation. A lot of companies will eventually have a strong component of fintech, right? And in my opinion, and many other active investors' opinion globally, India is poised to become a very deeply entrenched country, which will see financial transactions happening in tier 2, tier 3 cities like never before. So fintech as a sector is what we've imagined a fintech as is no longer going to exist, but it is going to become so big that that segment and the subsets which are going to emerge from fintech are to be looked after and looked into. The other is obviously SaaS got huge acceleration in the last 10 years, right? There were many SaaS businesses, and they were largely dependent on the US market. Today, you have great SaaS businesses being built out of India, selling to international, and also being built in India and selling to Indian customers. So SaaS definitely as a segment is really picking up, and within that, obviously, health tech, agri tech, vertical e-commerce. We invested in a company called Cora Health, which is a vertical healthcare platform providing only healthcare products, right? So many models are emerging. I mean, to the extent we invested in a company called Social, which is doing social commerce, to a podcast company. If you ask me which sectors are emerging, I think every sector. Again, as an investor, I'm very optimistic about the whole ecosystem in India, right? So, in my opinion, every sector needs to be looked at right now, because it's like flattening of the curve after COVID. It is flattening of the curve after, in 2021, after having a tenure of, startup ecosystem mature in India. And what now happens is possibly where, what happened for Silicon Valley in the 1960s, China in 1980s. It's a function of, can we pull up our sleeves and work? But everything is up for grabs. Everything.
Right. Very rightly said, Shashank. In fact, in fintech, one of my client companies, they have created a intellectual property that they allow banking on feature phones, which don't have an internet. And that will open up the payment and other markets for 200 million feature phone subscribers as well. So it's really going deep. You very rightly said. Coming to just a minute. Coming to Ankur. Ankur, what are your views on micro sectoral plays, especially in light of COVID and the vaccination getting played out?
Yeah. So there are going to be subsectors as well. Like fintech is going to become too big. It is going to become a retail in next 5 years, right? So there will be sectors emerging within the fintechs as well. Like you see neo banking startups coming in, BNPL startups emerging a lot. So fintech itself is going to be too big. So there is nothing to be said about it. EdTech is one which is going to see a very high boom in the coming time. So we are already seeing a lot of educational startups coming in. The existing startups gaining a lot of more traction and using AI technologies to bringing better learning into across the vertical, right? So you have students from schools learning starting from kindergarten even till post graduations and even after that, right? So a lot of that is going to be driven by how you can adopt it to individual needs rather than going in a batch mode where you give the same learning to 200 people and expect them to understand the same concepts and perform the same, right? So that is going to be one more. EdTech is going to be very big. IT services, obviously, more technology adoption will happen, more IT services will grow.
Right. Thank you. Thank you, Ankur. Sumit, your views on the same about micro themes and individual sectors.
Yeah, sure. So, I'll divide it into three groups. These sectors which are in the decline phase, sectors in the mature phase, and sectors in the growth phase. So if you look at, the trends over the last few years, I think about a couple of years back, we had seen AgTech and digital media, booming with InMobies of the world, making real impact. That was one sector where a lot of investments are happening. But today, if you look at in 2021, these two sectors are actually in a decline phase, both AgTech and digital media. And then if you look at the phase where the sectors have actually matured, where they have seen the growth over the last couple of years, and they have now almost matured, and we don't expect a hockey stick kind of a growth curve happening for them. Sectors like cybersecurity, edtech, clean tech, life sciences, and gaming. Gaming primarily because of the lack of regulations in India. There is still not very clear regulatory clarity on non-skill and skill-based games. Once that comes, maybe gaming would move to a different phase of a growth phase. But as of now, it is in a mature phase because we don't see a major growth happening in that. Cybersecurity is critical, but then cybersecurity has been critical for quite some time, and hence I say that this particular sector is in a mature phase. Growth phases, stuff like blockchain has come up in a big way. There has been about plenty of investments in the blockchain space, both from the VCs, early stage and late stage. And then you have agtech and new food as a segment. That's also coming up with the dietary consciousness rising amongst millennials and the new generation people, and people becoming more health conscious. These are the sectors which is seeing a lot of investments coming in. AI and big data is definitely in a growth phase. It is going to continue for some more time. People, there are matured industries just still trying to understand what is AI and what is big data. So that adoption, journey is still going on. So this will remain in the growth phase for quite some time. And fintech, of course, all of you said, and I completely agree. There are a lot of subsectors also within fintech, like neo-banking, which is going to see a major growth phase. So this is how I see, the three phases: growth, matured, and decline. Growth is where most of the action is: agtech, blockchain, advanced AI and big data, fintech. And one sector which I forgot to talk about is manufacturing. Robotics into manufacturing, advanced manufacturing and robotics. That is again a sector where we have seen some activities in this particular year. So yeah, so that's my take on this.
Thank you, Sumit. In fact, I've seen some edtech companies where the founders are earning so well from the profit and loss account that they are very lazy in capitalizing it. So the edtech has really, and all the sectors which you mentioned, robotics, cyber security, with the stealing of data, so yeah, and gaming. I've seen young entrepreneurs earning from gaming, earning handsomely, and they sometimes are lazy in capitalizing their success. So that is there. So coming to Kumar, Prashank, Kumar, what are your views on the sector plays and the micro themes?
I think people have touched upon most of the stuff. I'll just re-emphasize a few things from my perspective that I have seen happening in the industry, specifically in the IT one. AI and ML definitely is something that is going to grow pretty big. We have just started scratching the possibilities that we see when we talk about ML and AI. So I think that is something which is going to grow a lot in the next decade. And we'll see a lot of things actually pivoting towards utilizing those as the base. Blockchain is definitely something which is disruptive. It is going to change the way we actually store data and record things. So the immutability of the ledger, of the distributed ledger, that is going to be the game changer, not blockchain or any other smart contract. Oh, sorry, not Bitcoin or any other smart contract, so to say. But it's the basic distributed ledger and the immutability that will change the whole ball game. Cybersecurity, of course, it has gained relevance over the last 5-10 years. We have had even the US government pay up when their Eastern pipeline was like under stress. So yes, that's something which is going to be there. Personally, one thing that I feel, education and healthcare definitely will be the fields for the next decade. But insurance as a sector, I guess it's pretty mature in India in terms of the availability. But if we talk about the penetration, especially let's say the smallest thing, which is the life insurance, the term plan, I don't see that there is penetration in India as of today. And I definitely see that growing going forward. So we'll see a lot of penetration and a lot of people getting into the insurance bandwagon, so to say. So yeah, those would be my picks.
Great. Very well said, Kumar. So, it's really amazing to have insights from all of you. But, we would really love to hear about the area of work in which you are currently. So, coming to specifically about the area of work, Shashank, are you there? I'll first, yeah, Shashank is there. So, Shashank,
Sorry, my son has interrupted the session. So I'm trying.
okay. Okay.
Yeah, sorry.
So should I ask to you, or
No, please. No. So what's the question again?
The question is that what changes are you seeing in your area of work with lowering of COVID across markets? As in, some of the panelists here come from financial services companies, some are coming from IT company, consulting, and you are from the investment space. So, specifically in your area of work, what changes are you seeing? Like maybe a hybrid work and work from home, and people getting fatter sitting at home, and health issues and anything of that sort.
No, I think hybrid is here to stay. We were working out of home from March 2020, and we did. Sorry, just give me a moment. Maybe somebody else wants to take this up. I'll just kind of
Sure.
manage the situation.
Sure. Ankur, are you there? Ankur? Yeah. Could you comment?
Yeah,
could you comment on the changes you are seeing in your area of work?
So COVID in itself has done irreversible change in the way we work and the way businesses operate. So hybrid model in terms of working is going to stay, like Shashank was mentioning. There will always be like work from homes, and given that we used to ponder over this thought a lot, like can remote technology teams work remotely? Can you have a model where everybody is at different locations and you still operate, right? So COVID gave us a chance to actually prove to ourselves, like it did not leave us any other option. So it is going to be that way because people have adopted to it, and the reverse adoption, there is no force to do it. So you'll always like another at least 2 to 3 years, you'll have people working from home, people working from remote locations, and people also working across different geographies where they would not probably go physically. That is one in terms of how businesses operate. There has been a clear shift in the way they think about technology adoption, right? So all of a sudden, technology teams have adopted to new processes, new ways of working, created automation in all of their business processes, and even something that was we work in banking segment, BFSI. So a lot of our these stuff in the banking segment used to be paperwork. Major chunk of that has already been moved to digital. Like we have video KYC solutions today. You don't even need to go physically to a location. Onboarding systems have gone truly digital now. You don't need any physical verification to complete any these processes. So a lot of adoption in the regulatory terms has also happened, and sectors which have been reluctant to adopt technology for a very long time have accelerated their growth. Like banking is a classic example. Other enterprises are very good examples. So the way of doing business has changed a lot. It is going to continue, is what I foresee.
Okay, thanks, Ankur. Shashank, back to you. Any changes you are seeing in the way that your company is working?
Sure.
Any such changes which you see will become more permanent over time?
Sure. No, so I think, see, what has happened is, and this is across sectors, I think India as a country has been competitive, and hence, of being in office and, rising up the hierarchy and being present in terms of your, your seniors was always the mindset, right? So, and the seniors not being comfortable with the boss, you work from home and I trust you. That trust was missing.
Yes.
Right. And now what has happened in COVID is, larger IT teams are able to remotely manage performance, time being spent on an activity. All of those things are happening. And hence that is giving rise to a new sense of play. For instance, there's a company which we invested in called Beehive, which offers SaaS offerings to large organizations managing their tacit knowledge, because the argument is, agar aap office mein ho, to knowledge is a different kind. How do you kind of, accumulate that knowledge if you're dispersed, even if you've agreed to work remotely, right? So a lot of new things to kind of connect these moving pieces have come into picture, and hybrid model is here to stay. We moved to working from home in March like everyone else, and then we decided to come back after a year for twice a week or thrice a week. But over that last 1 year, we ended up doing 19 or 23 deals all virtually, meeting founders virtually, 1 time, 2 times, 3 times, doing the due diligence, able to do due diligence virtually, right? Whether it's a technical due diligence, whether it's a financial due diligence, aapke ROC ke filing hai, all those nuances, right? So it was challenging. You obviously missed being in front of them, because there's another aspect called reading the body language. Reading those attributes makes a lot of difference. No denying that. But I think the hybrid model has changed, and my biggest observation has been that the team managers or seniors in organizations have become comfortable with the idea of their employees working remotely, from the point of view that, oh, they're not going to work. No, I need the person right in front of me. We run a 6-month internship program largely for students right after college, and we've had interns working with us for 6 months from Bangalore, Delhi. Not even once, in fact, 2 batches, I did not even meet a single intern physically. They never came to our office. The tasks were designed, they were able to do. They were also equally motivated because they wanted to work for a VC and all that. So I think that landscape has changed. And I'm seeing, my wife works for a large MNC. She hasn't gone to an office for the last 1.5 years. She's joining a new organization now, and that is also onboarding virtually, right? So it has changed the mindset. Even though things have opened up right now after the vaccination, people are still not fully going back. And in fact, I've heard, and just yesterday when I was in office, I heard somebody saying, "Yaar, hum logon ne offer diya," and they rejected because they had to travel a distance. We only want to find place which is nearby, and that I can go every 3 days also, right? So the employees or the potential hirees have become very selective. They don't want to travel. They don't want to travel and spend 4 hours, each day in traffic. They are making choices, and they are making choices which are more healthier for their long-term life cycle. So those fundamental changes have come into picture, which was not there. And I think all of us on the panel come from that generation. Boss 8:30 बजे ऑफिस पहुंचना है, बॉस आने वाला है, रिपोर्ट रेडी रखनी है, 9:30 की कॉल है, I have to be in the office. If I'm not seen, they will be like, what are you doing? That mindset has shifted. I'm not saying it's gone, but it's shifted. I've become more comfortable working with employees remotely, right? So those things are changing.
Right, great. Thank you, Shashank, for the insightful views. I used to always wonder, multinationals say don't come to office, like General Electric. And here Indians say, if you don't work to office, your salary will be cut. So, very rightly said. Sumit, your views on the same?
So, from the PE world, initially when the COVID started, and, we started all of a sudden seeing a slump in the deals being signed. The discussions were going on. We were getting proposals, LOIs were going out, term sheets were being discussed, but people were not ready to sign on the dotted line because they were not comfortable doing it without meeting face to face. And that happened in lots and lots of our deals. And that was for the initial about 7 months, 8 months. And then the second phase came, the second phase went. And then, we started realizing this is not the way I think things are going to work. Let's be comfortable with the new normal. And then I think the industry started moving towards the new normal of actually even signing term sheets, the final negotiations, completely remotely. So that is something which has started now. We are doing deals remotely now. We are signing term sheets. We are closing deals, in fact, remotely, not even meeting physically even once. So those are the changes which have started taking place. And in terms of work, the work environment, I guess that's going to continue to remain hybrid. And it's working out good for everybody, right? Why do you spend 3 hours, 4 hours traveling on the road, right, to commute to your office. Let's spend that productively, in your, with your work computer and do something productive. That makes a lot of more sense. And people have started realizing that, employees have started realizing, companies have started realizing, as Shashank said, the trust element has really come up. You've started trusting your employees, and that ecosystem has been built. That, okay, so what? He's working from home. He's delivering. It is more about delivery now. It is more about meeting your KPIs now. It is not about showing your face and being in office for 9.5 hours. That's not critical anymore. What is critical is, are you delivering? Are you meeting your KPIs? That's more important. So yeah, I think things are changing. It's all good. This is the new normal. I think we have to accept that almost across all the industry segments.
Very well said, Sumit. Thank you so much. Kumar, Prashank, your views on the same, please. Are you also in for work from home, hybrid workplace? What are your views?
Right. So I'll come from an information technology mindset. That's the firm that I'm running. And frankly, I completely agree with all the speakers that the myth of having the person by your side, that has definitely got broken. I mean, that was an Indian mindset, and not just Indian mindset. I have seen my US clients do that to me, and even some certain European geographies do that they want the person right by their side. So definitely that myth has broken, and I think that trust level has increased. It is become delivery dependent. If you're doing the delivery, it doesn't matter to any person if you are doing it 3 in the morning, 3 in the afternoon, or 3 in the morning. I mean, I need it 10 a.m. next day. I get it. I am good. But simultaneously, we'll have to realize there have been challenges also. It's not been hunky-dory all along. So there is this company team culture, assimilation of people into the teams, making them feel comfortable. Like, it's very easy for all of us to come here and discuss. We have common things and we are comfortable with each other. But someone who is coming in and joining a firm for the first time, he doesn't know anyone. And then being completely remote, there is this lack of belongingness that sets in, and it might lead to a negative trend as well. And I've seen that happening also with a few of the people. So we need to realize that that's why the hybrid is there to stay. We cannot really work remotely. You have to have those 3+2 kind of a mixture thing. Trainings have been other challenge that we have been facing. Like, you have new people. Whenever people come in from campuses, there is this disconnect. You have to run. I mean, I used to say, I call it campus to corporate sort of jump. You have to give them some insights as to how things have to be handled when you're talking to a client or when you're working internally, professionally. How do you ensure that your interpersonal relationship and workings remains non-problematic? So that's definitely there. And if I talk about people's mindset of coming back, they are okay to go to Shimla, but they are not okay to come to office. That is also another trend that we'll have to see and work upon. But then I completely agree with Sumit. This is a new normal, and I would say it is still actively evolving. It's not really set. We'll have to see where this new normal actually settles out.
Great, right. Very interesting. Thank you.
Just adding
Sure.
to that point, Prashank made a very valid point. I experienced this personally. We had an IIT Kharagpur intern, and we thought, very good. He's working remote. He'll be happy. Office nahi aana pada and all that. And 1 month down the line, he's like, boss, you tell me when can I come down to the office and sit with you guys? Because this remote thing is not working for me. And I was taken aback. I was like, okay, I wasn't expecting this from a intern coming. Like, I need to sit with you guys. I need to learn. And that's precisely what Prashank was indicating, that sometime is the requirement. New gen folks need to understand how their seniors are dealing with certain situations. They want to experience that firsthand, and also what you might take them through an induction program virtually. They can learn a lot more just sitting across the table with you in 15 minutes.
Sure.
So those aspects will be there. The other point which crossed my mind when Prashank was saying the Shimla point is also, I think, larger organization in Bombay particularly. I'm not sure how many of you are from Bombay, but Bombay, BKC and Lower Parel have seen the commercial real estate side go completely bonkers, right? I mean, Deloitte shutting down their 4 floors office. Right, companies housing 10,000 employees let go of their offices, right? Particularly in IT companies. I don't know about Infosys domestic ones, but larger ones like, boss, I don't require so much space. So the cost of operating in terms of, your infrastructure is going down, and companies have suddenly realized that there will be quarters where I might not be able to perform in terms of revenue. Why should I bear the cost of real estate or wherever I can reduce my cost, right? So those points are emerging now. Nobody thought of not running an office, right? Today I've seen larger organizations, they say, if we, and this is examples, we work out of a co-working space, and we've seen organizations which had 5,000 employees, and suddenly they've decided that they've got 3,000 employees which can work from home, and for 2,000 dispersed, why don't they pick up 100-seater space in a co-working space rather than decorating and picking up a entire. So the whole model has completely shifted. And the third element, which again, working out of co-working spaces, the cross pollination of information. Now investors, startup and corporates are all sitting together. कोई किसी के टेबल पे जाके कुछ बोल रहा है, आप कॉफी पे मिल रहे हो, right? So the whole ecosystem, we are definitely not going back to the same days, is very clear. How it will emerge, building on Prashank's point, is yet to be seen.
Thank you, Shashank. Very incisive. So just coming to the end of it, we have another 5 minutes. So I want you to put your hand on your heart and answer this. If you are getting a failed startup entrepreneur versus an experienced employee, like an experienced hand, which one are you likely to pick in your team and why? So starting with Shashank again.
I think I'll leave this for the others to be, and I'll possibly say at the end. Maybe Sumit, Prashank, Ankur, you guys want to go?
Okay, Ankur, would you like to come in?
That's a tough one, actually. And speaking in front of finance professionals. So there is pros and cons, as always. You have a trade-off. So anybody who has started on an entrepreneurship journey or even managed Tela knows how to manage people, right? So somebody with the experience of managing a team or managing a business, whether or not it failed or succeeded is a secondary thing. But somebody gets an experience and gets into habit of that hustle. That hustle is very important when you start with a younger company. So if I am a startup with 10 to 20 people today, probably the better choice is somebody who wants to build stuff from the scratch and wants to grow. A person with a failed entrepreneurship experience would be a better choice, because he may have the hustle, he may have the right choice. It may be possible that he was just at the wrong place at the wrong time, right? So a hustler is very important in a young startup. But as you evolve, you need really experienced people in terms of their actual academic knowledge as well as ability to manage complex situations, right? So hustle can only take you to some level, but after that you need experienced people. So if you are a young company, I would suggest go for hustlers. If you are evolving, you need leaders who don't really need to hustle, but also manage your teams and and specifically to finance, right? It's a regulatory thing as well, right? You have to maintain your taxes, you have to maintain your obligations, you have to maintain your regulatory compliances, right? So as you start to grow, you need more experienced financial professional is what I would go for if at current stage. But if you asked this question 3 years back when you were 20 people, it was probably a hustler, a failed entrepreneur.
Okay, great. Very interesting. So coming to Sumit, Sumit, your views on the same.
I completely agree with what Ankur said, and absolutely. See, it depends on what position and for what role and in what stage of the business you're hiring the person. If you're looking at you are in a large business setup, but you're trying to set something up which is a new business unit, or you're getting into a new domain altogether, right? And you need to show fast growth, and you need somebody with that zeal, passion, enthusiasm, the risk-taking ability, and all of that. Then probably you would go for an entrepreneur who maybe have run a failed startup. And why do you go for that? You go for that because the person has perseverance, he has resilience, right? He has the grit, he has the hunger to achieve something, right? So he has all of that, and that may help you. But then if you're looking for somebody to lead a business which is already, on a 10 to 15% growth rate, and you want that to grow or sustain in that particular growth rate, it's a large setup, multi-geography location, right, and complex business environment, legal framework, and all of that. You'd obviously look for somebody who's more experienced, who has done that in the past, right? You'd not risk giving that part of the business to somebody who may not have such kind of an experience, domain knowledge or depth. Yeah, so that is my take.
Very interesting, Sumit. Thank you so much. Kumar, Prashank, your views on
Right, Tushar,
put your hand on your heart and then say.
Right. If I simply answer your question, and if I see a CV which is, let's say, failed startup, I would definitely shortlist that guy, and I would put him right there top on my list to interview. Simple fact goes is that, of course, you're looking for go-getters, you're looking for people who can take risk, and then we have to simply see the fact that he might have failed. But then, as Edison put it, I know 100 ways of how not to make a bulb, and this guy would have done umpteen number of things and have had learned, okay, it doesn't get done like this. And if you go ahead and bounce ideas off him, you will know what to do and what not to do. And of course, he can guide people in that direction too. I'll tell you an live example that it has happened with me. I came across a CV. This guy was a IIT Delhi pass out, and he had done 2 startups in 3 years. And then he was coming for interview with us. I hired him. I'll be very frank. I hired him. He stayed with me for just about 15 months or so. And then he went on to start his 3rd startup. But during those 12, 15 months that he was with us, he finished up 3.5 projects. He was facing 2 of my clients, and both of them were really happy because he would bring in cutting edge solutions. He would really get into the detail of things and figure out how best to do it, or how fastly to do it. So he would bring some kind of innovation to the table in some manner or the other. And that's why I say, I mean, you need go-getters. You need those people who can take risks. Of course, you don't want someone to be reckless. So you will, at the end of the day, take it on a case-to-case basis. You will have to ensure that you have proper controls around the person so that you can moderate his behavior anywhere. But you definitely want to make him comfortable enough that if he has an idea and you are comfortable with it, you can just let him fly away with it. And that's
very, very nicely said. A lot of empathy and realization towards what he brings on the table, the failed entrepreneur. Shashank, you good to go? Then there'll be a round of thanks to everybody. Finishing with you.
I echo with completely agree with Ankur's thoughts on why it's important which stage you're at. And I think rather than giving any thoughts, I think the example can be given. Google founders started Google, right? And they had the tech ability, right? When it reached a certain point, and they were best, and that's why they were able to build that, specific, and make the company reach a certain scale based on their zeal, their hunger, their ability, their kind of hustle. But they got in Eric Schmidt to run the company, to take it to the next level as the CEO. 2 founders, super intelligent, were building, and it is a global company, number 1 company in the world. But they brought in Eric Schmidt, CEO, very early on in Google's journey. And hence, I think, so as a message to all the founders, I think it's like, it's a good time to start. You're young, you have the ability to start, and you should start, but you also need to acknowledge the wisdom which a senior professional will bring onto the table, and can do for your company, which you have put your heart and soul to go to a certain level, and not collapse because of inexperience or lack of seeing something which as a function of age. And hence the senior position, whether it's in finance, whether it's in strategy, needs to step in. And that mindset, I think, there's no black and white answer here. It will work for a certain stage, then something else will kick in. Very rightly put by Ankur. Complexities will rise, and you have to intelligently and maturely address those complexities, whether it's by bringing in a senior professional, or if you think you have matured as an individual, you've taken some time off and really built up this, I mean, all of that. But having that mindset that, it's not either or, it's always going to be a mix. And you can look at all the type of companies from Flipkarts to all the big ones in India, in Mobi, and see their founders and the next in command, right? And you see the variety and diverse backgrounds each of these companies are bringing. And now we are seeing more so even in Series A companies. So that's my thoughts on the same.
Wonderful, amazing. Thank you, Shashank. Thank you, Ankur. Thank you, Sumit. Thank you, Kumar, Prashank. It was lovely interaction and a lot of insights for the audience here. And I would like to thank the Department of Financial Studies and thanks Dr. Manish Kumar. Thank you, Dr. Sanjay Sehgal, and thank you, Mr. Dua. Thanks all of you for coming today, sparing your valuable time and discussing wholeheartedly about the startup ecosystem. Have a good day, and I would like to take your leave now. Thank you so much.
Thank you all. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good day.
We hope you all enjoyed the session. I would like to thank all the speakers for taking their time out and giving us insightful details on decoding trajectory of the Indian startup ecosystem.